Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_dadding. So we've got a good amount of ground to cover today. We got Packers news and notes and whatnot. We got the injury report to talk about. And there was a bigger topic that I wanted to discuss, that we will discuss. But I don't know. I was real fired up about it earlier. That was a long time ago. I did Packernet After Dark, was able to blow off a little bit of steam. I don't know. We'll see. It may not be as big of an issue as I kind of thought it was. But obviously, the biggest thing, we have to talk about the Bears. We got to get started on that. It's a weird position to be in because usually I just like making fun of the Bears, and that's good enough for me. I'll just make fun of them all day. But we got to actually take them seriously as a NFL team and opponent and whatnot coming up. So actually look at their team and all that boring crap. It's not boring. I actually find it interesting. Hopefully you do. That's kind of the point. It's not really what I find interesting necessarily. Just saying it's an odd position to be in. But hopefully we can get right back to making fun of the Bears after this week. We obviously have a little bit extra time, so we can take our time with it. But for now, we got to actually just address the team for what it is. I guess we'll start with the big hubbub and just get that over with. So I started hearing this a little bit, and I didn't really think anything of it. I thought it was just kind of something somebody said, just one of those random theories or whatever. But apparently it's grown into a major thing. And I've noticed that this happens quite a bit, that something will pop up, and then everybody will just jump on board with it. And that's the case here. Somebody just made somewhat of a random, arbitrary claim. In this case, I think the actual originator of it was Tauscher, who played for the Green Bay Packers. I don't know. I didn't go seek it out. I didn't hear what he actually said. But from what people have been telling me, that was sort of the origination of this notion. It's the first time it ever grew up, and now it's ballooning into this massive thing. And the funny thing is how people look at it and they're just like, well, everybody knows now. Like, this is just a thing everybody knows. And it's like, good Lord, people. I don't know. I hate to use the word sheep, but I don't know what else to call it. I mean, when people can just make things up out of thin air and you're like, oh, yeah, that's reality now. Like, that's crazy to me. And I'm not going at Tauscher because I don't even know what he said necessarily. And he potentially made a good point I don't know. And I don't really want to reference the other person that wrote an article because I don't want it to be like a big thing. But I guess I'm going to be a massive freaking nerd for a minute here. But we got to be serious about some stuff. And I mentioned this on Packernet After Dark last night. And if you're not a big Packernet After Dark listener, then you'll be hearing this for the first time. If you heard it last night, then bear with me. If you have the absolute most introductory understanding of logic, which is pretty much what I have, just a very baseline. It's very interesting stuff. I actually have a book on it here. It's all math, which is kind of crazy, but whatever. Anyways, the very basic, absolute first thing that you could ever understand about it is that you generally have like this A plus B equals C thing. You'll have two premises and then a conclusion, right? So I made one up last night. Let me make one up off the top of my head here. Aaron Rodgers ruins everything he touches. That's premise number one. Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet. That's premise number two. Put those two things together and you get a conclusion. Aaron Rodgers ruined the Jets. Now, I know you're thinking that's stupid, but here's the thing. It is a technically valid argument. It is valid because all it needs to be valid is for the fact that the two premises actually do reach a conclusion. And I think the vast majority of people, the vast majority of media, I'm not talking about some of the better guys like the local guys or whatever, they do a good job just actually doing their job. Although some of the people, look, guys like Tom Silverstein do a fantastic job, okay? He does a good job. There are other guys, ESPN, whatever, that just kind of say stuff. Colin Cowherd on the national level, all these guys, they're very good at coming up with valid arguments. And that is just saying, I'm going to come up with these premises, and then it's going to create a conclusion. I'm going to create a couple premises and then create a conclusion. And it will be a valid argument. But it's not necessarily a sound argument, because a sound argument is, first of all, valid, but also there's an extra category, and that is that your premises are true. And so we'd have to look at it. We'd have to say Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. That is true. Okay, so we're almost there. We've established that it's valid. We've established that that the first premise is true. Now we have another one. Aaron Rodgers ruins everything he touches. Okay, can we prove that? How would we prove that? You'd have to actually do the work to prove that. The hardest part about that is that it actually is very easily disproven. And so ultimately, it would not be a sound argument, although it would be a valid argument. There is a new thing sweeping the world. And if we're just being honest and cutting through the bull crap, it's very obvious what's happening. There are a lot of people that don't like Matt LaFleur, and as soon as somebody gave them a thing to cling on to, a thing to grasp, they ran with it, right? That's very obviously what's happening. But let's engage with this for a second. There is a argument out there that Matt LaFleur is overreacting on the sidelines. He's a crybaby, he's a whiny whatever, and that it's hurting the team. Again, this has been said by multiple people in multiple ways, but there was an article written recently by somebody, and you guys know better than I do about who these people are and their reputations and whatnot. I was actually glad to hear that he tends to be more of a negative, on the negative end of the spectrum, which is good, because I think there's a large contingent of fans that feel that way. And they need an outlet, and apparently they have it in at least this person. Several other of like the ESPN people, they tend to just, every time I listen to them, it's like, what are you mad about all the time? It's a whole AM radio thing, man. They're all just finding things to be pissy about. Maybe that's where the negative fans come from. They listen to AM radio on the way to work and just get angry. No idea. Anyways, so I went and I got the robot to kind of help me out here. And I just, I fed it the article, and I said, okay, let's find the premises, and then let's find the conclusion, and let's just see what we got here. And this is the arguments, by the way. And I just want to go through this so we all understand very clear. And logic is not subjective, by the way. It's not like, okay, well, that's your logic, but that's your truth, bro, or whatever stupid bull crap. Logic is grounded in mathematics and science and reality. So if you don't pass this test, you don't pass, period. Okay, so we went through and scraped through a couple. Premise number one, LaFleur's behavior is overly emotional and inconsistent. Now, again, that is just a premise, which means it's a claim. It's just a thing we're throwing out there. You have to actually prove each and every one of your premises. So this is based on some observable behavior. He's arguing with officials, quote unquote, throwing tantrums, reacting dramatically during games. And then here is, again, what the robot had to say, just so we're clear on this. This isn't just me making crap up. While these examples are descriptive, they are subjective interpretations of LaFleur's actions. What one person sees as overly emotional, another might see as passionate or engaged, which, by the way, I do. But that's not what's important. Is this definitively true? The answer, no. Without broader context, which things like how other coaches behave in similar situations or statistical comparisons of emotional reactions, the premise relies on anecdotal evidence and could be biased. Could be. Give me a frickin' break, it's completely biased. Okay, so that fails. Premise number two. LaFleur's emotional outbursts negatively affect the team's performance. So it assumes a relationship between LaFleur's behavior and the team's performance. The examples provided are things like the team playing tight and mistake-prone. And it goes on to say, there is no direct evidence proving that LaFleur's behavior causes the issues. Is this definitively true? No. Why? Come on now, you know this one. Correlation does not equal causation. There are other factors that are not being accounted for. Player execution, opponent strength, game strategy, which could explain the team's performance. The premise is speculative with no concrete data linking LaFleur's behavior to specific outcomes. So number two fails. Premise number three, LaFleur's poor decision-making under pressure has cost the team. Now, this one talks about LaFleur being 0-6 on challenges. That's clearly a thing, although still, We don't know the process there. But, okay, gifting that one. Says, while the statistic is factual, it doesn't necessarily prove that LaFleur's emotions are the cause. Challenges are often high-stake, low-percentage decisions, and even the best coaches struggle with them. Is this definitively true? Partially. The statistic is true, but the interpretation that emotions are the cause is not proven. There is no evidence provided that LaFleur's emotional state directly led to these poor decisions. Number 3, fails. Number 4, LaFleur's bad behavior sets a bad example for the team. So, this assumes that players are influenced by LaFleur's emotional behavior, and while leadership can impact team culture, the author doesn't provide any evidence, like player interviews, anything, any team performance metrics, to show that LaFleur's behavior has a measurable negative effect on the team. So is this premise true? No. The premise relies on the assumption that players are negatively affected, but with no direct evidence, it remains speculative. Number 4, fails. Number 5, the Packers struggle against top NFC teams partially due to LaFleur's behavior. The author connects LaFleur's behavior to the team's 0-5 record against top NFC teams. However, the premise ignores other factors: roster talent, injuries, opponent strength, execution errors. Is this true? No. While LaFleur's behavior might contribute, it's unlikely to be the sole or primary reason for the team's struggles. The premise oversimplifies a very complex issue. Number 5, fails. So, looking at the overall soundness, it says the argument is valid in structure, which it is, because if we assume the premises are true, then we can assume the conclusion, which, Matt LaFleur needs to be the adult in the room, I think is the conclusion that it came up with, that would be true. You can phrase it however you want, but yeah, it would be valid. If the premises are true, the conclusion logically follows, but it is not sound because the premises are not definitively proven to be true. The author relies heavily on anecdotal evidence, subjective interpretations, and correlation without causation. Without stronger evidence, like statistical analysis, player testimonials, or comparisons to other coaches, the argument remains speculative. And by the way, please understand that does not mean that you can get any statistical analysis, which is to say, Matt LaFleur has more when Matt LaFleur has more outbursts, the team loses. That's statistical analysis there. Now it's proven. That's stupid. It's not proven. It's just another claim that you're throwing out there that's going to be decimated against any real scrutiny. Same with comparisons to other coaches, because I've already seen this. Well, look at the Vikings coach. What about him? Well, he wasn't acting like that. Yeah, because he's the coach that was the coach of the team doing the blowing out. What is he going to scream about? And by the way, he still did it. How many times does he do a little pissy face when he doesn't understand a call? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You think I can't find videos of Andy Reid freaking out or Bill Belichick freaking out? You know what? I can. You know how I know? Because I already looked and I found them. And that's not even to talk about guys like Jim Harbaugh or Pete Carroll or Nick Saban. But of course, this is never meant to be an actual serious critique. This is simply somebody said something, and the people that don't like LaFleur are just clamping onto it, and that's it. Now, understand that if this was ever just presented as opinion or as a question, which is perfectly fine, then I don't have any issue with it. A lot of people that call into Packernet After Dark, for example, will call in with these kinds of things and say things like, I think. There's nothing wrong with having speculation. There's nothing wrong with having an opinion like, hey, I kind of think this. I feel like he's being a baby, and so some of the players probably do too. Okay, fine. But just understand that has zero weight to anything whatsoever. Like, it doesn't matter that that's what you think. It doesn't move the needle of reality even an inch. It's just something you're feeling, and that's it. And again, I feel the exact opposite. People are talking about Matt LaFleur in a way where it's like, so you're telling me if the referees call holding on a DB that didn't hold, and the DB's upset about it, what do you want the coach to do? Not react. So not get that guy's back. That's going to be better, because if he defends the player and says that's bull crap, he didn't do anything, then the player who's being defended is going to say, wow, he's being a baby, while he goes on and throws a temper tantrum too. Give me a freaking break. And the thing that annoys me the most about this is that nobody has ever said this before. I have never once heard any critique about a coach being emotional for a good reason, and all of these are good reasons. I've never once heard he's being a baby and it's hurting the team. Ever. Ever. So this is just a completely new made-up thing out of thin air. It's a new subjective rule that was just made up and only applies to Matt LaFleur, and we're supposed to what? Take it seriously? This is stupid. And it's not even to say that some people might not think that that's the case, like on the team. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. That's not the point. Anybody can make up anything that couldn't possibly be true. I could do the exact opposite. The only reason the team has won so many games is because he's so passionate. While everybody else is not playing, he's the only one showing any heart and passion on the sideline. And if it wasn't for Matt LaFleur, strictly because of his passion, we'd have a lot more losses. I can assert it, and it might be true. That doesn't mean it's not stupid for me to just assert it as though it's true. If I say it, and then like a player comes out and they're like, oh yeah, he actually really motivates me, what am I going to do? Be like, ha, see, I told you. I didn't know. I just made it up, which is stupid. Doesn't matter if a player thinks that it's true. If you want to come to that conclusion after players tell you that, that makes sense. Coming to a conclusion before that with no evidence is dumb. So again, if these people, and this is primarily, again, a lot of media people, would stop coming out and being so like, this is the way that it is. And again, I'm not talking about Tauscher because I don't know what he said, and there's probably a bunch of maybes and everything else thrown in there. I don't care. What annoys me is being irate about something as though it's absolutely true, presenting it as though it's absolutely true, and then playing the victim as though it's, oh, well, I'm not allowed to have an opinion. If it's an opinion, present it as an opinion. And also, if it's an opinion, why are you so mad about it? You don't even know if it's real. You're mad about something you just made up? That's stupid. I had somebody else comment on it like, oh, so it's terrible for Aaron Rodgers to have emotion, but for Matt LaFleur to be emotional is totally fine. Okay. God, I feel like a kindergarten teacher right now. Raise your hand if you know what's wrong with that line of argumentation. Anybody, raise your hand. Don't shout out, please. Raise your hand. It's a very wide umbrella you're casting when you're talking about emotion. There's a very different thing between throwing a bad pass and then blaming the receiver for it and throwing him under the bus, and a coach going out and yelling to defend a player that the referee was wrong. Technically, yes, that's both emotion, right? Like, when a baby is born, like it's your child and you weep, that's emotion. And also, when a man beats his wife out of anger, that's also emotion. But it doesn't mean that the two emotions are equal, now does it? So let's not say stupid crap. See, I am getting fired up. I just had to get her going, man. People need to stop pretending that they're that stupid, because I know you can't be that stupid. Also, he had a baby and he cries, he's emotional, and that's a good thing. But what? When I beat my wife, I go to jail? This country's thought it was about freedom. What are we talking about here? Let's get a little bit more specific. Yes, I personally think it's okay to have a coach that is passionate, that doesn't like when bad things happen. He doesn't like it when referees screw his team and his players and is vocal about it. I tend to think that's a good form of emotion. And I don't think it's a good form of emotion when you throw a ball 5 yards short of a receiver and you throw your head back like he did something wrong. And we have evidence of Rodgers, by the way, doing the wrong thing. And it came out that, yes, Rodgers was actually in the wrong in that. And even if he wasn't, again, throwing your players under the bus is not a good thing. But that's not what LaFleur is doing, is he? Did LaFleur go out and blame somebody for something he did wrong? Did LaFleur call a run play and then we ran it and it didn't go for any yards and he starts screaming at Jordan Love for not changing his play? I mean, maybe. I don't know. But do we understand what I'm saying about valid versus sound? Because I'm so tired. Listen, a valid argument that is not sound, just call it an opinion and then calm down. Okay, we all have a lot of opinions. I have tons of opinions, and I've said a ton of stupid crap that is just random, right? Like when we were speculating about Jair, and I said it's probably an injury, but okay, let's play with it a little bit. Maybe what if, like, you know, they're asking him, and he's like, "No, it really hurts," and it actually isn't that big of a deal. That's speculation. I'm not going to pretend it's real and then get mad at Jair about it. We're just goofing around, like we're just talking about stuff. It's same with like Matt LaFleur early on when it was like, I don't know if he's got like that oomph, you know what I mean? Doesn't really seem like a locker room guy, you know, like a man's man. He seems more of like he's a mathlete, not an athlete kind of a thing. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't know. But there's a massive difference between I think and this is the way that it is, even though I just made some stupid crap up and I have no way to prove it and I'm not even going to try. But I'm still going to expect you to just, what? Validate your nonsense? Anybody can have any opinion you want, but if you're going to come into the realm of actually trying to prove things, then I'm going to expect you to have ready, locked, and loaded your proofs for your premises. Do you understand that? Is that clear? And any media personality that doesn't do that, I'm not going to take seriously. All right. We'll take a break. We'll go over some of the Packers news, and then we'll see where we go from there. We'll be right back. All right, so first of all, the official injury report. Jair Alexander obviously is out. Zane Anderson with a concussion is out, which shockingly is kind of unfortunate for us. Andre Dillard is out with a concussion. Quay Walker is out with his ankle injury, and Evan Williams is still out with a quadricep injury. So quite a few injuries, but I don't know. I don't want to get cocky and pretend like this is an automatic, but I guess you're glad that this isn't like a massive game that is, you know, giant implications like getting into the playoffs or not. In addition to that, Brenton Cox is questionable. He has not practiced all week with his foot injury. Christian Watson, though, did not participate on Wednesday or Thursday, but was limited on Friday and is questionable for the game. Matt LaFleur commented on that. LaFleur mentioned that Watson's availability for Sunday's game is still up in the air. Final decision will likely come down to game day, and fans will have to wait for the official injury report. So there's some optimism that he could play in this game, but you know, we'll see. I think a lot more of these game day decisions have gone negatively than positively recently, so I won't hold my breath on that, but we will see. On the Bears side of things, by the way, some other injury guys that obviously are playing but are worth mentioning. Chris Brooks had an ankle injury. He is good to go. Javon Bullard had an ankle injury. He is good to go. Josh Jacobs, wrist injury. Elton Jenkins and Tucker Kraft were out with rest. Interesting with Tucker Kraft. But and then Devontae Wyatt had a concussion, but he is also good to go. On the Bears side of things, Elijah Hicks, Travis Homer, and Tevin Jenkins are out. Tevin Jenkins, you want to talk about a guy that just cannot get on the field. Actually quite a good football player, but man, I mean, he's played, at this point, it's got to be like, 35% of his snaps or less, maybe? It's rough. A couple other things Matt LaFleur mentioned in his press conference. Apparently, Luke Getsy's been around the facility for some time, so he's actually been back. We're kind of bringing the whole gang back, including some new people, which I don't mind. I mean, the more voices we can get in, the better. But Luke Getsy, who apparently is known as the mayor around the Packers facility due to his long-standing relationship with many people in the building, has been working with the defensive side of things. So much like we've got a defensive guy helping the offense, we also have an offensive guy working with the defense, which I think is a fantastic thing. We need people that can be in there to kind of identify weaknesses and kind of get a differing perspective. It's his first week physically present, but he has been helping remotely for weeks by watching tape. LaFleur values Getsy's input, trusts his perspective. Getsy's role is similar to how Saleh is working with the offense. His presence provides a fresh set of eyes and new ideas for the defense. So it couldn't hurt, you know what I mean? It couldn't hurt to, you know, if you see something on tape or whatever, go ahead and let us know. So I love the having as many assistants, especially high quality guys that have been around. You know, some guys, the higher up the ladder they go, they kind of struggle, and we see them as sort of as goobers, you know, like just these complete idiot morons, but they're not. You know, they got to where they are for a reason. Matt LaFleur talked about the focus for the team, which I don't really care about. Too many times we've heard about such great focus, and then they show up unfocused. So I don't really care about that. In other news, rookie running back Marshawn Lloyd officially moved to injured reserve. So that dude, he went through a lot of crap, man. He got injured. He went on IR. He came back from IR. He got appendicitis. I don't know if he suffered a new injury or the same ankle injury. But he's injured. He goes out. They put him on the 21-day window to bring him back. Doesn't look like he's going to come back, so they just shut him down. Just a rough freaking year, but I'm excited for his future. I'm excited to see him next year. There's several guys that we just really haven't seen that I'm interested in, ranging from our first-round pick, Jordan Morgan, and seeing what he can become, hopefully getting a more regular job with the Packers. We'll have to see. Marshawn Lloyd for sure. Hopefully he can become a solid number 2 running back for us. Potentially guys like Tyron Hopper, I'm hopeful can step in. Even Kalen King, A couple other little Packers news and notesy things here. This is from Dara. He says, wild stat from the last Packers roster to lose to the Bears. There is now more players playing for the Bears than playing for the Packers. So what we're saying is that if you go back to the rosters between the Bears and the Packers, the last time the Bears won, the only guy I believe that was there that's still playing is Mercedes Lewis, and he's a Chicago Bear. Now, this is coming with some caveats. Number one, Jair did play in that game, but he's not playing in this game. He's out for the season. Kenny Clark was on the team at the time, like he was, part of the team, but he was on IR at the time of that game. So the only guy to actually play in that game was Mercedes Lewis. So pretty funny because, they suck and they haven't beaten us in a long time. Also, apparently, Packers will be welcoming back Morgan Burnett and Nick Collins for Sunday's Packers-Bears game. The guys will be signing autographs and visiting with fans at the Lambeau Field Atrium on Saturday, January 4th from 11 a.m. to noon via Aaron Nagler. And then finally, something Ken Ingalls dug up. Sean Ryan needs a 3-year average snap count of 35% in order to earn a 136%, which is $1.921 million pay raise for 2025. It's so funny when you think about it's just $1 million or whatever. It's almost 2. But think about how crazy that is. $1.9 million. It's so much money. It's just... Forget about the fact that he's a football player and in big time NFL terms, whatever. Think how big of a deal, especially for a rookie that may not even have a starting job next year, how much $2 million matters. Anyways, he needs to average 35%. He's at 34.93%. Ken Ingalls went a little bit deeper, said it's very, very razor thin and borderline unlikely. It's more than likely he's going to come unbelievably close. But the Packers average 63.69 snaps on offense per game this season. If Sean Ryan plays the average of 64 snaps, his 3-year cumulative average would be 34.98, which is not enough. He needs to play 65 snaps to get to 35%. So he needs 65 snaps, and the average is just under 64. But there's also an additional twist, because it's the amount of snaps that he plays as a percentage of the team's total offensive snaps. So, for example, if the Packers play 66 snaps and he misses 1 and plays 65 of 66 in this game, he will be at 34.99. So they need to play 65 snaps, and he needs to be in on every single one. If that dude tweaks his ankle, he better just snap right up and get to work on it. For $2 million, you better believe it, dude. So as an aside, keep an eye on that. I don't know if you're going to be able to, but try to keep an eye on how many snaps the Packers have had. Let's root for Sean Ryan getting 65 snaps and getting that $2 million. And then in, semi-Packers news, in the Washington and Dallas game. Now remember, we need to win, and we need Dallas to win in order for us to bump back up to the 6th seed. Here's the problem, via Ian Rappaport. From the insiders on NFL Network, the Cowboys have a decision to make on coach Mike McCarthy. But with the hay in the barn for the final game, sources say quarterback Trey Lance is expected to play his first significant snaps of the season. Trey Lance might be one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen play, so the very slim odds of Dallas winning just really, really plummeted. The only thing I could hope for is, number one, obviously he improved massively as a football player, and then number two, just being completely caught off guard. I mean, he is a very athletic quarterback. If Mike McCarthy can utilize him properly, I don't know. I don't freaking know. Mike, figure it out, please. But massive fingers crossed on Trey Lance and the Dallas Cowboys beating the Washington Commanders. All right, well, let's take a break. We'll come back and do a quick overview of the Chicago Bears, see what they're doing and up to and whatnot, and then we'll get out of here. We'll be right back. All right, Chicago Bears. So there's a bunch of unsubstantiated rumors, first of all, which I find hilarious, so we should probably talk about it. First of all, there is widespread belief that Ben Johnson's camp, this is the Lions offensive coordinator that the Bears, at least a lot of Bears fans would love to bring in, that Ben Johnson's camp is putting pressure on the Chicago Bears to remove Ryan Poles as the general manager. This is according to Eric Lambert. Eric Lambert is lead Bears writer and insider for Sports Mockery, co-host of whatever. Now, I don't know if this kind of crap is true, but I hope it is, and I find it hilarious. Look, Ryan Poles is terrible at his job, and he needs to go. And the fact that the Bears are not willing to do it perfectly illustrates why this team is never going to win anything. It's also hilarious that Bears fans want to pretend that this is the top destination in the known universe without even acknowledging the fact that, yeah, dude, Ryan Poles is there. So that sucks. Speaking of, there's also a lot of chatter about whether or not Mike McCarthy will end up getting fired by Dallas and possibly hired by Chicago. Now, it kind of just seems like one of those things that you bring up to Bears fans to make them upset. Obviously, that wouldn't happen, but it's funny because Bears fans would cry. In reality, though, I don't know that it doesn't make a lot of sense. So far, we've heard that they want an established coach, not too many more established than Mike McCarthy. The guy is a great manager. He understands the whole running a football team thing. But also, he's an offensive guy. Got a lot of experience with quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers in particular, but also going back to San Francisco. He's got a heck of a resume. And let's not pretend that Dallas didn't have some scary offenses for periods of time. Like I said, last year, Dak Prescott arguably was, maybe the best, if not certainly top 3 quarterback last year. Now, they probably won't do it just simply for the optics of it because, they're going to try to do something flashy and whatnot. But if enough options run out, if Ben Johnson takes off to Jacksonville and, they're not able to land the next couple names on the list, I don't think McCarthy is that far down before it becomes the best option. And I don't even know that it's a terrible option for the Bears, but I do know that it's funny because McCarthy is not widely respected, and Bears fans would hate it, and that would make me happy. And finally, on the whole Bears coaching thing, I'd mentioned the rumor going around that Ben Johnson to the Jaguars is the worst kept secret. Well, then I came across this little ditty. What is this? 1010XL 92.5 Jacksonville Sports Radio.
That's the guy you hired, though, Greg.
No, I'm with you 100%. And, the reason I reached out to you the other day to have me come on your show is the connection that I do have with Mark Brunell.
Sure.
And we stay in contact. We text and we call. And after Detroit destroyed the Jaguars, I texted Mark. I said, move heaven and earth to convince Ben Johnson to take this job if it becomes available.
Yeah.
And then we talked. We actually talked on the phone together. And he said, look, Ben Johnson wants that job. Mm-hmm. He likes the idea of Trevor Lawrence. And, of course, if Ben were to come, Mark's going to follow. They're very close. He's his offensive coordinator. He would be the quarterback's coach here in Jacksonville for Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
I said, well, what if
But you don't think he'd be the offensive coordinator?
No.
You don't.
So just to summarize exactly what this is, again, Jacksonville radio station reaches out to Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell, former quarterback in the NFL, now he is the quarterback's coach for the Detroit Lions. This guy reached out to Mark Brunell. Now, maybe he would say that about 7 other teams too, but reached out and said, please convince him to come to Jacksonville. He's really talented, whatever. They talked on the phone, and Brunell told him, first of all, he really wants the job. He likes the idea of Trevor Lawrence, et cetera, et cetera. He also said that Brunell would go with him. He would follow him, and he would be the quarterback's coach for him there. He would not stay in Detroit. He would follow the offensive coordinator. Several things. Number one, that's great for us because Detroit is going to lose 2, probably 3 people, as I said before, probably a front office piece as well. The other thing that's great about it is why would Brunell follow the offensive coordinator? Plenty of reasons why, I suppose, but if you felt as though the power was in the head coach, this is your job, this is where it's at, this is all, the fact that you want to go to a worse team for a lateral position, right? You have less security there. If things don't work out, you lose your job. You stay in Detroit, they might even promote you to offensive coordinator. Who knows? The fact that you're already willing to pack your stuff and go to Jacksonville with him because you want to follow that guy, you want to hitch your wagon to that guy, tells me that a lot of the offensive success, a lot of everything that's going well is the offensive coordinator. Not that that's a super radical idea, but it's for me, it's more of, I don't know if I want to say confirmation, but it's in that direction. So the Lions would be losing a lot of pieces. The Bears would not be getting those pieces. And at the end of the day, we just have them leaving the NFC North. So don't know if that's actually how that's going to pan out or not, but I'm loving hearing all these different arrows pointing in the exact same direction. Then we got this little clip here. Jalen Johnson asked about his mindset playing the Packers in Week 18.
That's how I'm feeling. I'm going to try to go out with a bang. So, it's last opponent on the schedule, so I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, that first word was Ephraim. Was what he said. Kind of alluded to it before, but I wanted to play it for you. Every single time before the Packers-Bears games, Bears fans run their mouth. Every single time. Whether they're talking about the fans or the players or the team or whatever, they always have to run their mouth. Again, I don't know who's going to win, but I know that this hasn't served them well in the past. You know what I mean? But anyways, on to the Chicago Bears. They are currently sitting at 4-12. And as I mentioned before, hilariously, they were 4-2 prior to their bye week. Coming out of their bye, they have not won a single game. They are currently, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? I guess that's pretty simple math. 4-2, now they're 4-12. Didn't need to count it, that's fine. They have lost 10 games in a row. They lost 18-15 to Washington, 29-9 to Arizona, 19-3 to the Patriots, yikes, 20-19 to the Packers, 30-27 to the Vikings, 23-20 to the Lions, really weird, 3 NFC North games in a row and almost won all 3. Then 38-13 to the 49ers, 30-12 to the Vikings, 34-17 to the Lions, 6-3 to Seattle. The 6-3 game obviously close. But I think the more encouraging thing is, again, they had their little flurry, and I said that might happen. That was right after they fired, who did they fire? The offensive coordinator, I believe. And so now they got a new offensive coordinator who's going to be calling different plays, for a while it can be kind of tough. They almost beat the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions, and then they get blown out by the 49ers, blown out by the Vikings, who just, again, they just played them close, and then blown out by the Lions. I'm really hoping we follow suit, right? We had our one close game because of some fluky nonsense, and now it's time to blow out Chicago. I'm hopeful of that. It's funny because when you look at sort of the when they lose, when they win thing, you wouldn't think that there'd be a lot of correlations because it's like, well, they just haven't won in 10 games or whatever. Actually, there is. There's a pretty high correlation as far as when they win and how many points they score. When they score 24 or more points, they are 4-1, and their only loss was to Minnesota in overtime. So nearly 5-0. When they don't score 40, when they don't score 24 points, they are 0-12. It's also hilarious because those wins came before the bye, which just tells you that after the bye, they have not scored 24 points once. This is a horrifically bad offense. The 3 highest scoring games were against Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota. Minnesota was the 27 points, so the one sort of anomaly that was overtime, but that was Minnesota. Then Detroit was 20 and Green Bay was 19. So the 3 sort of fluky games are the only the highest. So it's even worse than it seems. Aside from those games, the highest amount of points that they've scored since their bye week is 16. And actually, you know what? That was week 3, so that's not exactly true. Week 8, they scored 15. Week 2, they scored 13. So since week 9, they have not scored more than 13 points. Since week 8, they have not scored more than 15 points. As far as on the defensive side, they win when the defense holds teams to 18 or less points. They are 4-2 when the defense holds teams to 18 or less points, which means they are 0-10 when that doesn't happen. So the Packers need to keep the Bears below 24 ideally, which is, it's not a super crazy number, and it speaks to the quality of their defense. However, on the offensive side, the Packers need to score more than 18 points. No team has scored more than 18 points against the Bears and lost. The Rams game, they allowed 18, Titans 17, Jacksonville 16, Panthers 10. The only other thing that's important, and it is going to matter because the Packers have not been dominating the turnover differential quite as much, but the Bears are 4-2 when they take the ball away 2 or more times, which is kind of scary because that's not that massively unlikely, 4-2. They are, again, 0-10 when they have 1 or less takeaway. So I'll tell you what, I am shockingly tired right now. It's why I sound like I'm intoxicated if it sounds that way. I'm going to leave it at that. Tomorrow we will dig into their roster a little bit for the game day episode. And for today, we're going to call it. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye.